And a very good Friday morning. This is Kenneth Gruenfelder with another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And once again, it's great to have you guys here on this, well, at least on the East Coast where I am, the weather has been terrible. It's been another rainy day. So hopefully, well, the weather looks like it's going to be a lot better within the next couple of days. So hopefully that's behind us for now. But we've now reached the final week the final weekend of the regular season. Obviously, we got a lot to talk about on today's show. I'm just adjusting my mic here because I didn't really adjust it right before I got on. But as I was saying, we do have a lot to talk about today. But before we get into that, I just want to remind you guys to donate or tip and get your comments recognized. Go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. And also for bonus coverage materials that are not covered in this broadcast, go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network. And that is where you will find the exclusive content for myself and the other podcasts as well for the GSMC Sports Network. And I will be recording the Patreon video at the end of the live broadcast. Trying to get up yesterday's show. I'm in the editing process of that. The whole stream is up, of course, but I'm working on editing the broken down segments, the 4 individual parts of the show. So that's up. So in case you missed anything, that will be up at some point during the day today. But with that now, let's get into what we're going to talk about. Obviously, like we always start off the show, I'll talk about the latest news and headlines around the league. Then in the second segment, I'll talk about the American League side of things. We'll talk about the Orioles clinching the American League East and the Mariners getting a big win, a walk-off win against the Rangers last night to keep themselves in the playoff race, of course, for the wild card at the moment. They also did gain ground in the division, so obviously we'll touch upon that, and we'll go through the other scores regarding the American League as well. Then in the National League, we'll talk about the Cubs getting swept by the Braves. So that really puts a dent in their playoff hopes at the moment. We'll also get into the Marlins not completing their game with the Mets last night because of the game being suspended due to rain. So that game is going to resume today. So we'll get into that and, of course, the other National League scores. And then we will preview the games for this upcoming weekend because some teams were off yesterday. So yeah, and that's pretty much it. This is it. This is the final weekend of the regular season, and then when we come back on Monday, we will start talking playoffs. So that's the rundown for today's show. So let's get into the first part of the show, which is obviously the latest news and headlines. So obviously the Orioles did clinch the American League East last night. They got to 100 wins, and we're going to get into that more specifically in the next segment. But something else that came out of yesterday, so they signed a new 30-year lease to continue to play at Camden Yards. So, that's a good thing. I mean, obviously Camden Yards is an historic ballpark, and, can't really picture the Orioles playing anywhere else. I mean, obviously, over the years we've seen stadiums, teams change stadiums. We're going to be seeing that with the Rays at some point. Obviously the Yankees and the Mets, they changed stadiums, years ago. I'm someone that doesn't like change, but it's definitely a good thing that the Orioles will continue to be playing at Camden Yards, and that place is going to be rocking come playoff time. So really looking forward to that. That was one thing that came out of yesterday. Also, there was an article that came out. So these are like the crazy stats of the week. So MLB came out with that. So the first one they talk about is Aaron Judge. So he had his second 3-homer game of the season last week, and he did that in 100. He can play at most 107 games for the season, obviously, because he missed all that time due to the toe injury that he sustained running into the wall at Dodger Stadium, and that kind of changed the course of the Yankees season. But, so at most he could play 107 games on the season. So his 37 home runs are the second most by a player in a season in which he played fewer than 110 games. And that's only behind Mark McGwire in 1995 when he hit 39 home runs in 104 games. I'm kind of hoping that Judge gets to 40. But it's just, again, it's really unfortunate that he got hurt because he definitely could have hit close to 60 this year. And it just stinks that that ended up happening. So the next one they talk about is the Brewers. They clinched a playoff spot, and they won by 15 runs, and that was against the Marlins when they put up 12 runs in I think it was the second or third inning, and that was tied with the 2018 Cleveland Indians at the time for the third largest win by a team on the day they clinched a playoff spot. Only the 2001 Braves and the 1996 Yankees had bigger such wins by 17 runs each. And Rowdy Tellez pitched the ninth, becoming the first position player to finish a game on the mound for a team the day they clinched the playoff spot. So that's interesting. So then the next one they talk about is Michael Lorenzen. He recorded a save for the Phillies. After throwing a no-hitter earlier in the season, he became the 10th pitcher to throw an individual no-hitter and record a save in the same season, since saves became official in 1969. He joined 2014 Tim Lincecum, 2010 Matt Garza, 1993 Chris Bozzio, 1980 Jerry Rios, 1976 John Candelaria, 1973 Nolan Ryan, 1973 Jim Bibby, 1973 Phil Nerecro, and 1969 Bob Moose. Again, apologize for the pronunciation of some of those names. But yeah, and again, if you haven't done Immaculate Grid yet, these are some names that you could definitely use. I didn't see what it was today, so but yeah. And then the last one, or actually no, there's more after that. Blake Snell. This revolves Blake Snell. So he has 186 strikeouts and just 19 runs allowed in his last 23 starts. He's the first pitcher with at least 170 strikeouts and fewer than 20 runs allowed in a 23-game span since 1901. Snell has a 1.2 ERA in his last 23 starts. The only other pitchers with an ERA that low in a single season, 23 start span, is 1968 Bob Gibson, 1915 Grover Alexander, 1914 Walter Johnson, and 1914 Dutch Leonard. So yeah, and then there's a few more. One of them has to deal with L.A. De La Cruz. He hit 2 home runs on Tuesday, the second of which had a 119.2 miles per hour exit velocity. That's the Reds' hardest hit baseball tracked by StatCast. He's one of just 6 players with at least 1 home run at 119 or harder tracked by StatCast. And yeah, he's in good company. Giancarlo Stanton, Judge, Ronald Acuna, Manny Machado, and Kyle Schwarber. So yeah, that is very good company when it comes to that. But yeah, everybody just loves exit velo nowadays. But yeah, he's in good company when it comes to that. So Juan Soto hit 2 home runs on Tuesday, and he rides a 30-game on-base streak into the weekend. He now has 17 career multi-homer games, tied with Mel Ott, who Miguel Cabrera tied on the all-time home runs list, and Bob Horner for third most before turning 25, behind only Eddie Matthews and Hal Trotsky. Soto now has 160 career home runs, tied for 7th most before turning 25, behind only Matthews, Ott, Jimmy Fox, Mickey Mantle, Ken Griffey Jr., and Alex Rodriguez. And then finally, Garrett Cole, we'll just get into this one, finished off his Cy Young campaign throwing a 2-hit shutout. He became the first Yankee with multiple shutouts, allowing 2 hits or fewer in a season since David Wells in 1998. So I just thought that was interesting to go over some of those. But yeah, so that's those are some of those are very interesting, obviously. And again, if you didn't do Immaculate Grid yet, some of those names you could definitely use. I don't know what it was today, but but for future reference. But yeah, I mean that's obviously the Blue Jays, they picked up a big win last night, finally beating the Yankees, which I expected. We'll get into all that. Also, quick thing on Matt Olson. So he set the Braves RBI mark, and the Braves also clinched the best record in the National League with last night's win. So they're going to have home field advantage. Also, the Orioles are going to have home field advantage as well. So those teams, along with that, having first-round byes. So yeah, the World Series, the path to the World Series is going to have to go through Atlanta if the Braves, obviously if something happens, but I expect them to, again, go to the World Series. And the Orioles have home field advantage right now, so we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. But some big series coming up this weekend, of course, and we'll preview all of that. Like I said, some teams have off. Had off yesterday, but everybody's playing this weekend. We may be saying goodbye to, we're going to be saying goodbye to Miguel Cabrera and Adam Wainwright, of course. This is their final weekends playing. Well, Adam Wainwright's done pitching, but he's, this is going to be it for him, at least now in the clubhouse, and then he's going to go off and retire because he's not pitching anymore. He's not pitching this weekend. Pitched his final game, his 200th win. Miguel Cabrera. Then you got Joey Votto. We don't know what his future is going to be. And also Zach Greinke could be making his last start of his career against the Yankees this weekend. So, And then, of course, we said goodbye to Terry Francona. Well, he's still managing, of course, this last series, but at least, in front of the home crowd. So, it's, going to be sad to see some of those guys go. It doesn't look like the Reds... I don't think the Reds are going to make the playoffs, so we might be seeing the last of Joe. At least, we don't know what's going to happen. But right now, as it currently sits, Reds are 1.5 games out. So, they need a miracle, but with 3 to go here. But I think they're going to be on the outside looking in. Also, the Padres are still in it because of the game getting suspended last night. And also, I was watching something. The Padres, at least when I saw it, the video last night. So they're 1-12 in extra inning games. They're also 7-23 in 1-run games, and I think that's most recent. But that's just, again, like, if they flip those games, they flip those extra inning games, they flip some of those 1-run losses. They're right there. So, I thought that was interesting. So, that's pretty much it when it comes to the first segment of the show. Obviously, when we go to break and then we come back, we'll talk more specifically about the Orioles clinching the division. We'll get into the Blue Jays picking up a win, the Mariners walking it off. There's a lot to go over, and we'll get into all that. But let me know what you guys think of this first segment, and that's pretty much it when it comes to this segment. But it's just crazy that we're at the final weekend of the regular season, and playoffs are going to start, and it's going to be wild. It really is. So this is going to be what the next segment's going to be, obviously. It's and things could change by Monday. Right now, the playoff picture might not be what it is on Monday because things are still very close. And the Mariners, they got a huge win last night. So, and it's against the Rangers, so the Rangers haven't clinched the division yet. So that's still kind of up for grabs at this point. But we're going to go through all that. And, but this is it. This is the final Friday of the regular season, and there's still playoff spots that are up for grabs at the moment. And, it's going to be crazy, to say the least. I got a busy weekend myself, so obviously I will be keeping track of everything. So I'll be at the Jet game on Sunday. Taylor Swift is going to be there, so... Yeah, and apparently ticket prices are going up. And it's kind of funny because we bought the tickets to see Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. Then when that wasn't going to happen, the prices went down. Now they're back up again because now Taylor Swift is going to be at the game, supposedly. So, So crazy weekend. Baseball, my weekend in general, it's going to be awesome. So with that, we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will discuss the Orioles clinching the AL East and the Mariners getting a big win against the Rangers in walk-off fashion. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we'll talk about the American League scores from last night. More specifically, the Orioles clinching the AL East and the Mariners walking it off against the Rangers. So we'll get into the Orioles. They picked up their 100th win on the season against the Red Sox. Dean Kramer got the win, improving to 13-5 on the season with the 4.12 ERA, and Chris Sale dropped to 6-5, 4.3 ERA, and Wells picked up his first save of the season. And how the Orioles got those 2 runs, Anthony Santander hit his 28th home run on the season, and then Heston Kjerstad doubled that scored a run, and that was the only scoring of the game. But the Orioles get the division, they get 100 wins, and they get home field throughout the playoffs. And listen, as a Yankee fan, and my friends were talking about it in the chat today, saying how, it seems like Yankee fans are like happy for the Orioles. I mean, to me, there's really no animosity towards the Orioles. I would probably say, out of all the teams in the division, I'd probably rank the Orioles last in terms of, I would say, I don't know, I guess dislike. Because, the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry, there's that. The Blue Jays have, just been kind of annoying over the last couple years. So, obviously with Alek Manoah calling Garrett Cole the biggest cheater in baseball history. And then you got Vladimir Guerrero talking about never wanting to sign with the Yankees, and then when he was celebrating last year and saying how this is my this is my house, and it's just I don't know why they just started unnecessary beef with the Yankees. So, and then the Rays are just the showboating and stuff is annoying. But listen, the Rays are a very good team. The Blue Jays had a better season than the Yankees. So, obviously, when they're good, you're going to respect them being good. But with the Orioles, it's I don't know. I don't really have any... To me, there's really no animosity there. I mean, I guess for other Yankee fans, they just don't like Aaron Hicks, so they hope Aaron Hicks does very bad. But I think for me is, he's not on the team anymore, so it really doesn't have any impact on me whatsoever. So, but... Yeah, good for the Orioles. We talked about the last time they played in a postseason game, who was in their lineup. So it's very different now. And, yeah, listen, there's some concerns with them, and I've talked about this. But, I think they have a good lineup. They got a good bullpen. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how they line up the rotation come playoff time. I don't know who they're going to start game 1. I would guess... To me, I think Bradish probably gets the start because I feel like he's kind of been their best starter. Dean Kramer's won 13 games. You got Flaherty. You got Kyle Gibson. So, I don't know. We'll see it unless I'm missing somebody. But that is their rotation pretty much. I'm missing one of their other starters, Grayson Rodriguez. So, I think to me, Bradish probably starts game 1. I could be wrong, but I'm just assuming that. But... Yeah, they're gonna play the winner of, I guess, the last wild card team and the Central. So, it's either gonna be, well, right now the Astros have the 3rd wild card spot. So, it's I don't really know, but yeah, going up against, if it's the Astros in the first round, that's a tough. That's a tough first-round opponent. That's as tough as it's going to get, and especially because they're the defending champs. But the Orioles played very well against the Astros, especially in Houston. So, but again, playoffs are different. And I think, it's a young team, and they're going to feed off of the energy of the ballpark. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We're going to just, the Twins, I feel like whoever they play against, I'm just going to not pick them. I'm going to pick the other team, but, because it's the Astros. If it's the Astros, it's the Astros. The Mariners are a good team. So, I don't know. But, yeah, Orioles, congrats to them on winning the division. And, yeah, they got the best record in the American League. And how about that? Not a lot of people expected that. So now we'll go into the Mariners-Rangers game. So the Rangers were winning 2-1 going into the bottom of the ninth, and I actually was able to catch the very end of the game on my way back from New York City last night. And as I was going into the tunnel and I lost connection, it was when J.P. Crawford hit his the 2-run walk-off single in the bottom of the ninth. And it didn't look good because, so we'll go through the summary. So Tavares, he hit a solo home run, his 14th on the season. Dolis Garcia hit his 39th home run to put him up 2-0. Julio Rodriguez hit his 32nd to make it 2-1. Well, J.P. Crawford RB a double, 2-run double to win the game in the bottom of the ninth. But yeah, it didn't look good because I put it on and it was bases loaded, nobody out. And the ex-Yankee Mike Ford comes up to the plate. And Ford popped out. Well, he flew out to center field. And then Josh Rojas, he popped out to third. Josh Young made a nice play there. So then there's 2 outs, and he got the top of the lineup up. And I'm saying, man, if they lose this game, that is going to be so tough. Because, I mean, it drives me crazy when, watching the Yankees and they, have runners in scoring position and they don't score. Because there's been times, bases loaded. If you got the bases loaded and nobody out and you can't score, that is one of the most infuriating things, especially if you're a fan of the team. Like, you can't scratch off at least 1 run. But then J.P. Crawford comes up, and like I said, as I'm in the tunnel about to lose connection, he hits the ball to left field, and the play is not made. The ball drops, hits the wall, and 2-run score, and the Mariners end up winning a big game, 3-2, the final score there. So let's go look at the we'll look at the wild card really quick. So yeah, we got the graphic for today, of course, which is just looking at the. So obviously the top spot is the Rays, so I cut them off because that's pretty much where they're locked in. So right now, Blue Jays picked up a win against the Yankees, so they're 88-71. The Astros didn't play last night; they started a 3-game set with the Diamondbacks tonight, so they're 87-72, and then the Mariners are 1 game back; they're 86-73. So that's the updated wild card standings going into the weekend. So, so that's a big win. That's a big win for the Mariners. So now with the division, when it comes to the AL West, so right now the Rangers are 2 games up on the Astros, and they're 3 games up on the Mariners. So, I don't think. I mean, if the Rangers got swept, that would just be like insane. But I don't see that happening. But you never know. Mariners are going to maybe try to get revenge for them getting swept last week. So, but yeah, I don't see it happening. I think the Rangers still take the division, but anything is possible, of course, as you can see. So, but yeah, that's a huge win for the Mariners. That would have been a crushing loss. They got it. They got to win these games. They do, because if they lose, it really is at the point where if they lose any of these games, they're done. And yeah, I mean, they're still going to need the Astros to lose. Astros are playing the Diamondbacks, who lost to the White Sox yesterday. So, nothing's really set in stone with, the Diamondbacks' playoff positioning. Right now, they're a game and a half up on the Marlins. But, again, we have seen that things can change in an instant. And there's only 3 days left. But, yeah, so that's going to be a tough series for the Astros. But I think they're going to be okay. I think the Mariners still are ultimately going to be on the outside looking in, but that's just me. The Blue Jays, so we'll get into the Blue Jays. So they got a big win yesterday, winning 6-0 against the Yankees, which, again, kind of expected that to happen. Luke Weaver pitched okay. I think he pitched 4 2/3. Let's just look at the box score really quick. Yeah, he only pitched 4 innings. 4 innings, gave up 2 runs, 2 home runs. He gave up 6 strikeouts. Zach McAllister came in. He gave up 3 runs. Yankees just couldn't get anything going against Chris Bassett, which, again, I kind of figured. 12 strikeouts. He had 7 2/3 innings pitched. So, yeah, pitched very well, which, again, I kind of expected. So Dalton Varsho, he got it started off with the solo home run. Matt Chapman homered. Kevin Biggio singled to score a run. Brandon Belt hit a 3-run home run in the bottom of the sixth, and that's your summary there. So yeah, Blue Jays pick up a huge win, and I kind of expected them to salvage this final game because again, Yankees are trotting out Luke Weaver in 2023. So I expected the Blue Jays. I mean, in the beginning, I mean the first run didn't score till the third inning, so you're thinking, the Blue Jays, why aren't they're not scoring? But then they scored a run in the third, the fourth, the fifth, and then obviously Brandon Belt hit a 3-run home run. And that, the Yankees offense just didn't do anything last night. So, so the Blue Jays right now, game up on the Astros, and they start a 3-game set with the Rays this weekend. And the Rays are pretty much locked into where they are as that second wild card. So, or the first wild card. Sorry, I meant to say first. So they could maybe rest guys. They might not. I think it all depends. But, again, they were kind of in the same position the Brewers are in, where it's like we want to stick it to our division rival and knock them out. So they could do that. So, but yeah, I mean, if the Blue Jays were to lose the game to Luke Weaver last night, I mean, I would have came on and said, what the heck was that? But it didn't happen. But and then as for the Yankees, they're trying to keep their streak going of finishing over 500. So, I mean, now they're playing the Royals this weekend. So, I mean, I don't expect them to get swept by the Royals. But, who knows at this point. The other American League scores, so the Tigers, they swept the doubleheader against not the doubleheader, but the suspended game and then the other game after that. So they finished off the win from yesterday or 2 days ago, and then they finished. So they won that game, and then they won the other game as well, 7-3. So right. That's what I think so. Whatever it was, 7-3, and then 8-0. Those were the scores there. So they got that. So they're at 76 and 83 on the season. Torkelson hit his 30th home run. So yeah, I mean, listen, that's the future with the Tigers. So hitting 30 home runs was impressive for him. So they got to build. Tigers got to build around Spencer Torkelson, and try to get back to being, a contender like they were in the early 2010s. So. And then the Twins, they lost to the A's. I mean, Twins are pretty much locked into the spot they're in as the third seed, so nothing really to talk about there. That's pretty much it when it comes to the American League scores from yesterday. So with that, we are going to take our second break of the show. And then when we come back, we are going to discuss the National League side of things and obviously talking about the Cubs getting swept by the Braves and how big that was because now they are on the outside looking in. And then, of course, we'll get into the Marlins and Mets game getting suspended, which Skip Schumacher was not happy about the manager for the Marlins. And I'll be honest, I didn't know he was the manager for the Marlins. I did know, but I don't think I really thought about it. But yeah, Skip Schumacher, that's another immaculate grid name right there. So, but yeah, we'll talk about that. Marlins got to finish up this game with the Mets today, although I don't know. I mean, I guess they'll get it in, but right now it's the weather's not looking good. But I mean, it's a very important game because the Marlins are in the wild card race. So, but yeah, we'll talk about all that when we get back. So, stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And before we get into the third part of the show, I just want to remind you guys, for donations and tips and get your comments recognized, go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. And then, as always, for bonus coverage materials that are not covered in this live broadcast, make sure to go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network. So, with this third part of the show, we're going to go through the National League side of things, obviously headlined by the fact that the Cubs ended up getting swept by the Braves. Matt Olson broke the franchise record when it comes to RBIs in a single season for a Braves player. So obviously him and Acuna are making history. And actually, quick thing on the Braves. So obviously being from New York, I listen to WFAN, and on one of the shows they were talking about some suspicions that they have with the Braves. Now, not saying that they think the Braves are doing anything, but they just were bringing up the questions of, why some of these players are doing really well. And earlier in the year they were talking about why the Rays were doing so good, why a lot of these no-name players were having really good seasons. So there was some suspicion there, and Rays fans weren't too happy about that. So now they're talking about the Braves. And they went through Matt Olson's past history with his stats, and why this year he's having just a really great season. And not to say that they are suspicious, but they're just posing the question why is all of a sudden he having this great year? And for me, when it comes to things like that, I feel like we now live in a day and age where if a player's doing very well, there's always oh, is he cheating? Is he taking something? It's not just... And believe me, I sometimes have those thoughts too. Aaron Judge hit 62 home runs last year. And again, I'm not saying that saying he's done anything. I'm just saying you kind of for some reason now I've been some people have been programmed to think oh, that's something suspicious is going on there. You just have that thought, what if he's, taking something, and also, again, with, what the Astros have done, too. They brought up, oh, what if the Braves are doing some kind of sign-stealing thing? It's just, I feel like now we just live in a day and age where, you just think of that, and it stinks, because it just ruins everything, because you can't just sit back and just, enjoy, what a player's doing, without being oh, he's got to be doing something. So I think it's kind of just how it is now. I mean, the Braves, I'm not, again, this is not me saying that. This is just something that I saw that I wanted to bring up. But listen, the Braves are a really good team. And listen, or maybe it's just because Matt Olson had his breakout season. This was his breakout year. And the Braves have a very good lineup. Up and down the lineup. Their lineup is incredible. Acuna, Albies, Ozuna, Matt Olson, all these guys, Austin Riley, all these guys that are hitting, 20-plus home runs, 30-plus home... I mean, Acuna with his 70 stolen bases they are having a great season. They are a very good team. And could they be doing something? I don't know. But for right now, I don't think so. I don't. I just think they are a very good team, and they're having an historic season. And unless something comes out, that's what I believe. So, but yeah, that's just something I wanted to bring up. But let's get into the games now. That was a little rant there, but yeah. So the Cubs got swept, and this wasn't a game where they just kind of it was a meltdown at the end. They lost this game 5-3. They started off the game strong, went up 1-0 in the top of the first. Off of a Ian Happ reaching on a fielder's choice. Mike Tauchman scored on that. And then Matt Olson hit his two-run home run in the bottom of the first, his 54th on the season. So obviously mentioning Matt Olson before. So that put the Braves up 2-1. Michael Harris, he doubled to make it 3-1. Ronald Acuna singled to make it 4-1. Eddie Rosario reached on a fielding error. Austin Riley scored on that to make it 5-1. Then Seiya Suzuki doubled, put the Cubs back to 5-2. Then he singled again in the top of the 8th to make it 5-3, but it wasn't enough, and the Cubs end up losing. And because of that, they are now a half game back in the wild card race behind the Marlins. Now, the Marlins weren't able to tack on another half a game because their game got suspended in the top of the ninth inning. They went up 2-1. There was no scoring until, the bottom of the 8th. The Mets got a run in the bottom of the 8th. And it was off of a Rafael Ortega single. So that put the Mets up 1-0. And then Jazz Chisholm doubled to make it 1-1. And then Yuli Gurriel singled to make it 2-1. And then the game got suspended. And this is an important game. This is a very important game that needs to be finished. So I really don't know. I guess I don't. Well, right now I'm looking on MLB. It says that the Mets and the Phillies are supposed to play each other. I don't know specifically what is going to happen. I guess. So let's see if anything is. Because I was checking the Mets Twitter last night. So they just tweeted 15 minutes ago, due to weather, of course. The Phillies game has been postponed. So there's going to be a doubleheader tomorrow. But now what I guess that means that the game is going to be made up on okay, so the game is going to be made up on Monday. Okay. All right. So there we go. I feel like they definitely have had to do something like that in the past. But that is just so annoying because that game is very important. And that could very well be what decides the wild card for the National League. So we got to wait till Monday. The Marlins, they play against Pittsburgh this weekend. I think also it all depends because if the Marlins, if they sweep Pittsburgh and the Cubs lose 2 out of 3, then I don't think that game's not getting made up. Because that's another thing that I think has happened too, where there's a game that can be made up, but because there's no weight to it when it comes to the postseason, then they kind of just are we don't need to make this game up. So, but yeah, Skip Schumacher was very upset with the Mets grounds crew. The Mets grounds crew, they posed for a picture in front of the Marlins dugout, and they were laughing and stuff. So, the Marlins should be upset because these games are really important. They need to win these games. But I think, as I've said, the Marlins are going to have that third wild card spot, I think. And I think the Cubs are at this point are on the outside looking in. They had those first 2 games. The first game they definitely should have won, but they just could not hold on to that 6-0 lead. And then obviously Suzuki makes the play misplays the ball in the outfield. Then you have, the second game where, the Cubs are winning and they just couldn't hold that lead. Bullpen couldn't hold on to it. So, yeah, it's tough. And again, I thought the Cubs were a lock to make the playoffs. And then since that point, they went down, and now they're half game out. So, it's not looking good right now for the Cubs. And, now they're playing the Brewers. And we'll preview the series as well in the next segment. But, yeah, it's not looking good right now. So, yeah, they lost 5-3, of course. Brewers got a 3-0 win over the Cardinals. They improved to 90-69 on the season. Phillies dropped to 89-70. They lost to the Pirates 3-2. Diamondbacks, we'll highlight that. So they lost 3-1 to the White Sox yesterday. Andrew Vaughn hit a 2-run home run in the bottom of the second, his 21st on the season. Kento Marte sacrifice fly in the top of the third. Diamondbacks down 2-1. Then Yohan Moncada hit his 10th home run of the season to make it 3-1 White Sox, and that was the rest of the scoring there. And Diamondbacks dropped to 84-75. Still a half game up in the wild card. So actually, let's take a look at that quickly. So I just got to switch this really quickly here. So again, I don't know, there's got to be a way to do this, but I don't really know without you guys seeing me switch everything. But yeah, so right here you see Diamondbacks 1.5 up on the Marlins, and then you got the Cubs who are a half game back, and you got the Reds who are 1.5 games back, and the Padres are still somehow mathematically alive for the wild card as well, but we know that's not going to happen. So, but yeah, I just wanted to show you guys there a visual of it. Obviously, of course, you could still see it on if you look it up on your phone and things like that. So, but just to get a graphic in for today's show, I did that. But yeah, I mean it's not looking good for the Cubs right now. Obviously, we're going to preview all the series for this upcoming weekend, and actually, so it's possible we will technically have but the other thing is this: it's like meaningless. It's in the top of the 9th inning. I don't know. I mean, they should have just called it, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what went into that decision. I guess because they're in the 9th inning, and the Mets should have a chance to come up and try to, win the game. But the Mets are out of it. So and the Marlins need this game, but I don't know. It's it is what it is. So yeah, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much it when it comes to the third segment of the show. Obviously, when we come back, we're gonna preview the upcoming games, of course. We'll go through all that, and yeah, then that's pretty much it. So we'll discuss all that as well, and yeah, so but again, it's really unpredictable what's going to happen this weekend. I mean, the Cubs they could. I mean, listen, the Cubs could take the series from the Brewers, and then they overtake the Marlins for that spot. I mean, who knows? And then of course you got everything going on in the American League. The AL West is still not finalized yet, although you lean more towards Texas when it comes to that. So yeah, no, there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. So we will we'll get into all of it when we get into the final segment of the show, and then that'll basically pretty much be it. So, and then we'll see if the Marlins and the Mets end up playing on Monday. But I think if what ends up happening is if they end up clinching that spot and the Cubs get eliminated, then it's not really going to matter. But yeah, we're just going to have to again, the weekend's going to be crazy. It's got a lot of stuff on the line this weekend. So, but yeah, we will so when we for the final part of the show, of course, we're going to preview the upcoming games for this weekend. And then that will pretty much be it for the live portion of the show. And then I will go and record the Patreon. So, yeah, that's going to be what's for the final segment of the show. So, yeah, make sure to tune in, to keep listening and hear my thoughts on that. Again, I just want to remind you guys to leave a comment, like, and subscribe to the video. Once I'm done here, I'll try to get to the comments as well, and then yeah, make sure to go over to Patreon and watch the exclusive content. Subscribe to that, and so you get the exclusive content when it comes to that as well. So with that, we are going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we are going to preview the games for this weekend. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC baseball podcast. And for the final segment of today's show, we will preview the upcoming games for this weekend. A lot of playoff implications on the line, of course, as I talked about. So let's get right into it. So obviously we'll go through each game, or each series, look at the pitching matchups. And then, yeah, that'll pretty much be it for the live portion of the show today. So, Yankees and the Royals this weekend. This could be the last the last start of Zach Greinke's career. So that's going to be on Sunday. So for tonight's game, I guess they switched around the starters because I think Jordan Lyles was supposed to pitch on Saturday, but now he was moved up to tonight. So Carlos Rodon gets the start for the Yankees against Jordan Lyles. Carlos Rodon just had a rough year with the Yankees. 3-7, 5.74 ERA against Jordan Lyles, who's having a worse season than that. 5-17, 6.24 ERA. And then on Saturday, you got Clark Schmidt. Right now, the starters to be determined for the Royals. And then on Sunday, you got Michael King against Zach Greinke, who's having a rough season. So that could be his final start of his career. So we'll keep an eye on that. Marlins, big series against the Pirates. Marlins right now 82-76. So listen, if the Marlins do well this weekend and the Cubs again, if the Brewers end up taking the series from the Cubs, then that suspend the game on Monday is not going to really matter. So right now they got Cabrera on the mound for the Marlins. So again, listen, the Marlins, the urgency, they got to win. They got to win these games. So yeah, that's tonight's starter. Then they have I don't know why MLB doesn't have the starters listed. So now usually CBS has it. So that's what I'm going to do. So Cabrera's pitching tonight for the Marlins. Then tomorrow you got Weathers versus Jackson. And as of right, again, this is as of right now. And then on Sunday, you got Garrett versus Beto. So those are the pitching matchups there. This is an important series. This is going to decide it all right here. And then you got the Cubs and the Brewers. Of course, I was hoping that the division was going to come down to this weekend, but the Cubs just have not played well as of late. So, the Brewers ended up getting the division there. You got Kyle Hendricks pitching tonight against Rhea. Then you have Wicks going for the Cubs on Saturday. And got to go back to... And then you got Junk going for the Brewers. That's his name? Unless it's pronounced some other way, but yeah, that's who's pitching for the Brewers. And then you got Hauser and Steele on Sunday. So, again, Cubs got to take this series, otherwise they're done. So, again, I don't really know how it's going to go because, again, baseball is just, anything can happen. But, I think for the Brewers, they're going to say, listen, we want to knock these guys out. So, I don't know why on MLB, a lot of these games, the starters are to be determined. Oh wait, this is for Saturday. Okay, here we go. Okay, now I think they all loaded in, or most of them did. Rays and the Blue Jays got a big series, so you got Savali and Kikuchi for tonight. So you got Hendricks and Rhea. We talked about that. Also, you got Diamondbacks and the Astros. You got France against Zach Gallen tonight. So that's a big series right there. Both teams, wild card spots. Rangers and Mariners continue their series. You got Evaldi against Wu for tonight. So yeah, those are the games that have playoff implications, and that's really it. Then the Orioles and the Red Sox. You got Pivetta against Means tonight. Guardians and Tigers. You got Quantrill versus Wentz. Braves Williams against Winans. Martinez against Cease when it comes to Padres and White Sox. You got Joe Ryan against Blanche for the Rockies. Williamson against Woodford for the Cardinals. Cardinals and Reds series. So yeah, the Reds. That's a big series right there. Of course, Reds trying to pull off a miracle, but odds are stacked against them. You got Wallenchuk against Silseth. Angels and A's. Dodgers and Giants. You got Lance Lynn against Wynn for the Giants. So yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to the matchups for tonight. But yeah, I mean, Blue Jays and Rays, that's a big series right there. The Blue Jays, this is big for them. They got Littell and Ryu on Saturday, and then on Sunday, right now it's Bradley against Gosman. At least that's what CBS has. So ultimately, I'll kind of just go over what is going to end up happening. Again, I think I brought it up on the Patreon, but right now you got the Orioles and the Rays. They're locked in. Twins are locked in. Rangers, I think, take the West. Astros get that third wild card spot. Mariners are going to be on the outside looking in. Marlins are going to be the third wild card. Diamondbacks are going to have the second. And then then we're going to be off and running after that. Everything starts on Tuesday. So on Tuesday, so right now the Rays, they're locked into their spot. Phillies are locked in to their spot. Twins, Brewers. So the times aren't set, of course. But so that's what's going to be from Tuesday to Thursday. Obviously, unless teams sweep the team they're playing against, then it's only going to be Tuesday and Wednesday. But that's the matchups will be set by Monday. We'll go over it. We'll talk about it. And it's going to be. Again, it's going to be a late night for me because I'm going to be coming back from MetLife Stadium and get home at 2, 3 a.m. something like that. Because this is going to be my first Sunday night game for football. I've never been to a late football game, except I guess technically the Giants preseason game from 10 years ago when they played the Bears, but I don't count that. You know what? It's definitely weird when I went to a football game for the first time, because I've been going to Yankee games pretty much my whole life, from what I can remember. And going to a football game for the first time was it was so different. Watching it live, you're there. Then, because it was just wow, I'm not going to a baseball game. I'm going to a football game. It was just so different. But obviously that was a preseason game, and then, I've gone to 4 or 5 games. After that, I've gone to a Jet game, a Jet Packers game, and I've gone to some Giant games over the years. And I'm pretty sure every single game I've gone to, they've lost. No, they haven't won a single game I've went to. But it is what it is. I got to see Tom Brady beat them. I got to see Aaron Rodgers beat them in the snow. I got to see the Cowboys blow them out. Yeah. So it's been great. It's been great. So we'll see what happens on Sunday. But the way the Jets have been playing, the Chiefs. And of course you're gonna have all the Swifties there too. So, I'm sitting way up. We're sitting on the third. We're sitting all the way up. So that might be where all the Swifties are sitting, because because she's supposedly gonna be there. But yeah, so Taylor Swift, football. We got baseball playoffs coming up. Got teams fighting for wild card spots. It's gonna be a crazy weekend, really. For me and everything else involved. So, but yeah, like I said, that third wild card spot for the National League. Right now the Cubs are just. We'll see how it goes. You got Justin Steele pitching on Sunday, so that could be the rubber game maybe. And the funny thing is, it could all be decided off of that game that was suspended that could be made up on Monday. It could be decided by that. And I wonder, Like, are they gonna just play it in front of like an empty state? Like, are any like fans like I don't know how that works. Like, are any fans gonna be like going to that just to watch like the ninth inning? I'm just curious to see how that's all gonna like play out if it does end up happening, because if that ends up being like what decides the third wild card spot, like, I mean that's just gonna make this show even better on Monday. But at least everything else is gonna be wrapped up. We'll know what everybody else is where everybody else stands by Monday. But we might have one more thing that needs to be decided. So, but I mean that just kind of stinks for the Marlins because, if they got to play that meaningless, ninth inning on Monday, well, not that it was meaningless, but, you got to play that on Monday, then you got to play the next day. So, I don't know. And especially because it's a 2-1 game. I mean, I don't know. Well, you just got to hope. I think they just are going to be like, let's just sweep the Pirates, get this done this weekend, and then we don't have to worry about it. Because listen, if they, take care of business this weekend and the Cubs don't do good, then Monday doesn't even happen. But, things could be made interesting if, they lose a game, the Cubs win. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go. But we got that. Mariners trying to get themselves back into the playoff picture. So, the Diamondbacks and the Astros, that series is big just because, Diamondbacks, they want to make sure they still have that second wild card. And Astros, they got the Mariners breathing right down their neck. So, that's big for them too. I mean, I just think, it would be crazy if the Astros missed the playoffs. It really would. But again, I saw all that. There was a lot of Dusty Baker dislike. Because I was watching stuff on YouTube. I mean, the comments, they're all over Dusty Baker. His decisions on the lineup, not playing guys every day, and how he manages the bullpen. Kind of sounds like what Yankee fans complain about when it comes to Aaron Boone. But, it's crazy that it's really that bad. I didn't realize that. I really didn't. But I guess it really is that bad. That's gotten to that point. They want him gone. They want him gone. So, any Astro fans that come across this video, I would like to actually get, your thoughts on it, on Dusty Baker. Because obviously, you get 30 teams, but to focus on. But, again, the same when it comes to me, it's like I want to know from the fans too. Now, obviously, there's a lot of irrational fans in every, with every fan base. So you're obviously not going to get. You're going to get their side of things, but there's definitely some. I think I definitely think there is some problems that I think they're telling the truth there, because. Listen, it's, the Astros aren't having their typical season. They've struggled a lot. And, that's definitely something, that you look at. Why is that the case? And there's definitely a lot of reasons for that. But we'll see what happens this weekend. Big weekend coming up. And, yeah, so I hope everybody has a good weekend, and I will talk to you guys on Monday. About to go record the Patreon, so again, make sure to go to patreon.com and check it out. Search up GSMC Sports Network when it's up. So with that, that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Once again, have a good weekend. I will see you guys on Monday, and we'll see what Monday brings us and who's in and who's out. So until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off. Have a good weekend, enjoy the games, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Take care.